Alright guys, so the BETAFPV 95x V3 is finally here. This has been out for a while. Some of the retailers like Pyrodrone had these, like when the SMO 4K camera came out, and then I think they sold out pretty quickly, so this may not be in stock at the time of this video in a lot of places, but check the links, and if you're interested in getting this, check back later. I'm sure they're going to restock as the next I guess second or third batch of these come out. But yeah, mine has been sitting in customs for about 15 days. I don't know why. I mean, it was in customs way long ago, just sat there with no update. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are frustrated with shipping. So if you are going to order stuff from China these days, it may take a while to get through customs. So I would recommend, especially if you live in the States, check the links for Race Day Quads or Pyrodrone. They'll usually have them. Well, if they have them in stock, they'll ship pretty fast, and you guys know that shipping in the US is going to be much quicker. You don't have to deal with customs. So if they do have it in stock and it ships within a couple of days, you'll probably get it within 4 or 5 days after that, depending on the shipping method they use. Anyway, this is more or less pretty much a total redesign in terms of the frame and the flight controller board. So they're no longer using the two board stack that they were using in the V2 and the V1. So here's the V2 here, and obviously this is the V3 on the left. And in the V2 and the V1, they had a two board stack here with a flight controller and a 16 amp 4-in-1 ESC, and that was a 32-bit ESC. Now they've switched to the 20 amp. I guess the V4 version of the 20 amp, which is a single board for flight controller, but I think now we're instead of a 32-bit ESC, it's now just a regular BLHeli SESC, and it's now 20 amps instead of 16 amps. So they are shaving a little bit of weight there by using a single board instead of two boards. They are still using the plugs on the motor wires and the obviously the plugs on the flight controller, which is, in my opinion, totally unnecessary because they have nice big solder pads on the 20 amp V4 board. But that's extra weight inside here, which you can't really see here, but I took a look inside, and they're still using the plugs, and they still have a lot of extra motor wires. You can see here it's all twisted up. They could definitely shave a little bit of weight off there if they did direct soldering, which is shouldn't be a problem, but I think it's because these 1106 motors, even though they're different kV, they also have the same plugs as before, so they are now using an 1106 3800 kV motor, and before I think it was a 4500 kV. It's a much higher kV, 4500 kV, and also 1106 with the same plugs. So wherever I guess the factory that they're sourcing this from is using the plugs, so that's why they built it this way. But I'm pretty sure that they could reduce weight by getting rid of that. Now they did switch to props again to from the 3-bladed jump fan right here to the 5-bladed jump fan. So that will, I think they did it for two reasons, because it's a lower kV, so the props aren't spinning as fast on 4S. It's still using the same 4S battery, so you're going to get a little bit more power at a lower RPM. So it does seem a little bit quieter than the 3-bladed prop, but the sound profile sounds less annoying. So that this 3-bladed prop is quite annoying in its sound profile compared to the 5-bladed prop. But in terms of the overall sound, it's maybe a little bit less. It's not significantly less. Now, in terms of the rest of the components, they're still using the Vista here and the Crossfire receiver. They're using the Nebula Nano. This has the updated firmware on the Nebula Nano, whereas I think this one on the one I had before was using the older firmware, which wasn't as nice. So you get a different kind of picture on this one. And really the biggest thing is the frame. So I don't know what the difference in frame weight is between the old one and the new. I don't have the frames without any electronics in them. I'll show you what the weight difference is here in a second, but let me just show you basically what they did to change the frame. I think they've beefed it up. I think it might be a little bit heavier overall. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I mean, basically they went from this kind of design where they have these smaller legs but more of them, but they have these sort of bigger spokes here now. And they have this foam bumper that wasn't on the V2. So that's for basically for flying indoors and not marking up your walls. And you can see here, this whole top part of the frame here where the duct is, where the prop guard is, and where the battery sits is all, injection molded, probably ABS plastic. But underneath, there's a carbon brace. So you can see what's right there. It's a small part where the motor mounts there, and then internal there part that's above the flight controller. So they kind of, they kind of reversed it. So instead of having the carbon plate on top like this, and then the plastic part, as you can see underneath, is flipped around in the new design. And I think overall it's probably stronger. I mean, compared to how much you can get the prop guards to bend on the V2 versus the V1, it does feel a bit stronger than the V2. And then the bottom here is much more protected. In this design here, they have these slots for the air cooling versus the bottom here on the V2 where it has this nice big opening. And this is basically a part that was on the V1 that they just, the V1 is basically standard, regular upright in terms of the design versus the pusher on the V2. And they just reuse this part here. It's kind of like what they did. It's basically from V1 to V2, they kind of reuse some of the parts here, like the frame, and then create this carbon brace for everything here and for the camera. And then they decided to scrap all that to go to V3. Pretty much everything that's in the V1 and V2 frame are gone in this one. And then you also have these little legs on the bottom here that you can see that you're going to land on so that the props don't hit the ground and you're nice and flat. You're not at an angle or some weird angle like that. So it's good for landing, and you can see that's going to keep the props off of the ground as long as you're not taking a rock or something. So as long as it's a flat surface, that's what I recommend, making sure you're on a flat surface. And then they address this problem here where things might get cut by the props here. So they put this is built into the frame, the little piece that's above the vista there, and then you see the wires are running underneath, so that even though the props are running very close to that, there's much less chance of you chopping up wires on this frame design versus the one over here. You can see the crossfire antenna is kind of in danger there, as well as some of these other wires are more exposed on the V2 design. So you can see here that they've also changed the way the camera's mounted. They designed this total frame for the SMO 4K cameras. You can see it's mounted right here in the back of this particular case. So if you're going to use a naked GoPro, you're going to have to print out a specific print for mounting the naked GoPro that will fit this mount piece here that's vibration dampened. So you can see that it moves around, it's for the jello and stuff like that. You do get the cord for the SMO 4K camera that's already soldered to the flight controller and already ready to go. They do have a little adapter that they include. You can plug in here, and then this one here is for the naked GoPro. It's a different plug, so if you want to use this, if you're going to be running a naked GoPro, you can use this little adapter, and they do include that with the drone. You will need to use both of these adapters if you have the DJI version that I have here, right angled micro USB and USB Type C, to get access to the various ports. So that for the Vista, I think you have to come in from the top like this. And I did have to take the prop off because the prop gets kind of in the way for updating the Vista, so that you need the right angle adapter and take the prop off to get to this USB port there. And then the flight controller USB port is sideways now on this new 20 amp board, which is back here, and you can see it's right there. And of course then you're going to come in from the bottom and use the right angle adapter to get in that like that. And again, whenever you're using these right angle adapters, you got to be really careful, and when you plug them in and pull them out, just try not to put a lot of stress on that USB port, because if you put too much stress on it, you pull it at a wrong angle, it's going to pop it off the board, and then that basically your drone's ruined and your flight control is ruined. So be very careful when you use these right angle adapters. I don't know, I kind of wish that they would design them so that you wouldn't need those. But again, they, I guess, just trade-offs, like, where are you going to put that USB port? So, okay, so the camera mount here is a nano camera mount. It's actually screwed into the frame. You can actually replace that, and it's kind of hard to see, but there's some screw holes right there you can see. And if you want to use like a micro-sized camera, if you want to upgrade the camera to the Nebula Pro, you can do that, but you're going to probably have to get like a 3D print to do that. I'm going to ask BETAFPV to make a micro-sized version of this mount so that it's available in a later batch, because that should be pretty easy to add. And there's just 2 screws on the top that are underneath this little plate here that you can use to switch the camera, because I'm sure a lot of people are still not going to like the Nebula Nano and going to want to switch to the Nebula Pro if they're going to be using this for any kind of like serious cinema work. Okay, so let me just show you how much this weighs. This is with the SMO 4K camera on there, and it's 149.7 grams. So let me just take the little ND filter off, because that's going to change the weight. Okay, so without the ND filter, it's 148.2 grams. And the camera by itself, if you just take the camera off, you just want the weight of the drone, you have to subtract 31 grams. The camera's 31 grams. So that comes out to about 117 grams, 118 grams, which I think was what is listed on the website. The analog version is going to weigh a little bit less. I think it's only like, the analog's only like 99 grams, I believe, because obviously you're not carrying around that extra weight of the Caddx Vista. And they're recommending the 4S450 as the battery to use. And they're saying that you can get 4.5 minutes of flight time on this, but I didn't get that much flight time of this setup here. But with the battery, it's coming in at 202 grams, and then with the ND filter, this is the way I flew it here, it's 203.7 grams. So the PID tune on here is, well, basically in a nutshell, it ain't great. They went with 4.2 in this case. They're not using RPM filter or I guess the Jazz Maverick firmware 16.9. That's basically the standard 16.7 firmware on the ESCs, and just a really basic PID tune. It's like, I don't think they're really doing a whole lot. And so this is somewhat, I guess the way it's tuned, it's somewhat loose, or kind of not really locked in at all. And it's a bit, it kind of drifts around a lot. Much more so than the V2 did on 357. And the flight time wasn't so great either. On this battery, I was only getting like 3.5 minutes of flight time. Yeah, sometimes less, sometimes more. So I'd say roughly 3.5 minutes of flight time. It may be because the DJI version is heavier and does draw a lot more power. I was getting closer to 4 to 4.5 minutes on this same battery on the V2 with the naked GoPro on there. So yeah, I think that their tuning on 4.2 here is probably leading it to being quite inefficient, and it's a fair amount heavier than the V2 was, because I think I've got the SMO 4K camera weighs a little bit more. I think the frame weighs a little bit more, so you're carrying a lot more weight. So I'm thinking that this 4S450, you're probably going to want to get a bigger battery, like at least a 4S, I'd say 650, maybe even bigger. And then you're going to want to retune this for that bigger battery. So if you're interested in having a video on how to retune this for a bigger battery, let me know in the comments below. If there's enough interest, I may spend the time to do that. But like, I think I asked that same question on the V2 video, because this had 357 on there. I asked if people were interested in a Betaflight 4.2 tuning video, and I think I got maybe 3 people that asked. So if it's only going to be 3 people that are going to ask for a retuning video in this, I'm just not going to spend the time to do that, because it just, if no one's going to watch it, there's no point in me spending hours and hours on making a video. because it takes a lot of time, and I could spend that time doing something else. So yeah, if you really are serious about getting a better tune for this, and you have this, do leave a comment below. Let me know. If you don't see any comments, definitely do leave your comments, because I think maybe that's the reason why people aren't leaving comments, because they see, oh, no one else is interested, so why should I even bother asking? So don't be like that. Just if you're interested, just go ahead and let me know. I'll come back and check it later, and if there's more people interested in this, then I'll take a look at it later. Okay, so last thing here, this was what else was in the box. Not a whole lot. You get extra foam here if you want to replace the red foam with black foam, so they don't give you replacement red foam. And you get an extra set of the Jump Van 5-bladed propellers, as well as some M2 screws. So that's pretty much it in terms of the whole drone and everything. They've kind of revamped this, and they really, I think, focused this on this particular camera. So, I'm not thrilled with the way this is, the whole camera is kind of designed like this. It does make this more or less a permanent installation, because you have to put that screw in there, and if I want to put this on another drone, I got to take that screw out, and it's kind of a hassle. Where if you have a mount, it's easier just to slide it in and out. They don't provide that mount. They provide one you can print for the naked GoPro. If you have this and you don't have the SMO 4K camera, you can print that out and then mount that here at this mount point in the back, and then you can slide your naked GoPro in and out, which is this is the method I prefer. So I may do a remix of that print for the SMO 4K camera, so I can move it around to other drones. But for now, I think I'm just going to leave it on here, and I'm going to do some further testing on this camera, because I want to see how I can get some better video out of it. So for now, this is going to live on here on this drone for the time being, and we'll see if I can maybe do a better tune for this as well. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for this one. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.